In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca.
I'm Max.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to WoT the Adaptation. We're the YouTube show that reviews adaptations from one form to another form. This week, we wrap up season 2 of The Witcher with episode 8, Family. What did you guys think of this finale?
I don't know.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, there were some surprises in it and some interesting things, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious where it goes from here.
Yeah.
What about you, Glenn?
Despite not liking the overall storyline with Voleth Meir and the Panelists, I kind of like this episode. There were individual scenes and beats that I liked. I just didn't like how it related to everything else and the reasons for those particular scenes existing, namely that reason being Voleth Meir. And still, I understand why they made that change, but still don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, let's dig into changes, although as usual, that's virtually everything. And this season, right? This wasn't the case in season 1, but season 2 just gets more and more into its own path. So there's very little here that was not a departure from the book. So we could talk about almost anything. What do we want to focus on? Yeah, sure, Glenn. Tell us about some changes from the source material that you liked.
I liked, since everything, I'm not going to refer to it so much as changes because there's only one thing that's not a change. So what I liked about this episode, every beat with Jaskier, he's been gold, man. Just
this whole season, he's wonderful. Yeah.
Ever since he showed back up, and it's like later book. You ask Dandelion, Dandelion's kind of a twit early on when you first get to meet him, and then later he actually becomes a worthwhile character. I liked all of Ciri's vision stuff when she was back home in Sintra. I really dug that. And I liked watching the Basilisk fight. That was pretty cool. One thing I want to point out about her vision when she's back in Sintra, and she's at the end when she's going back to taking back control of her body, and everybody's turning to dust. Notice who didn't turn into dust while standing next to somebody else who was turning into dust.
That was the first thing I caught in that episode when I first watched it.
What did you think that meant when you saw that?
To me, it clearly meant he wasn't dead.
Yeah. Emir was not dead. And I don't know if I would have picked up on that right away if I hadn't read the books by the time I saw season 2.
Yeah, but I didn't pick up on that. No.
We now know, back to Kaer Morhen though, we now know why there were so many Witchers when Geralt and Ciri showed up there. It's that they had Witchers to kill off when they had to fight with the Basilisks. Because otherwise they would have been eaten into named characters who actually have some relevance to the story, that you wouldn't want to kill off. So they just had extras, basically. I also enjoyed
some death counts for those Witchers this episode, I'm afraid.
I kind of like that short little scene with Fringilla and Cahir in the Cintran throne room when everything was being set up. When he was telling her, "You want me to rave? Then let me." It's like your plan worked. I something about that scene. I'm like, I really dug the way it played, even though it ties in stuff I'm not quite happy is going on. It's still.
It's an interesting, I guess, position because Fringilla's response is like, "But I would never do that." But at the same time, like she then, she clearly decides like, but taking credit for it might, taking credit for something that she would never do, she thinks is worthwhile.
Right.
So that's an interesting choice.
The only thing I didn't like with Fringil and Kaer was that very last scene with Emhyr's revelation that he was,
Okay.
who he was. So
Maybe we should save that. We'll talk about that when we get to things that we don't like. Yeah. So Max, do you have things you want to add about choices you liked?
I wouldn't really say there's anything that really, how do I put it, stood out as really, really enjoying or liking.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what her name is. Is it Francesca the elf?
Yeah, Francesca's the elf.
Yeah. The whole scene with her going through that town was like very dark.
Yeah.
And knowing now that the games take place after the final novels,
Mm-hmm.
that scene kind of like explains some of the attitudes you hear in the games.
Oh.
And because I'm pretty sure they made mention of like baby killing elves
Okay.
in the games. I'm not positive, but I swear there was something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I swear there was something about cannibalism in there, but I could be thinking of the wrong game.
Okay.
Memory's kind of a little fuzzy on that end. I don't know if I'd say that's a change I like, because like, how can you like that scene?
Mm.
But it does set up, let's say, 3 nations fighting.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
you have, Nilfgaard, you have the northern kingdoms, and then you have the elves as this kind of a pawn of Nilfgaard, but they're like not trusting anybody at this point.
Right.
And that's all I can really think of offhand of like major changes. I'm not even sure if that's really a major change from the books, because I don't remember that scene happening.
No, the only scene from the show, this episode at least, that has an equivalent in the books was the mages meeting, the conference of monarchs, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
The connection to the Deathless Mother.
Yeah.
Yep, Voleth Meir.
And the Wild Hunt, it was kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
To go from the Deathless Mother to a guy in a horse.
I think that was a woman actually, but anyways.
That was a guy, I don't know. But it's like that connection is like, oh, well, they're shit fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they're sort of setting up, they've been hinting at the Wild Hunt. They've been setting that up, and, knowing that's coming up in the books, it seems they're going to include that in the show. So. All right. Well, I mean, for me, I think the thing that probably stood out to me as like a specific choice that I think made sense to me and that I particularly liked was the way that Ciri's side of things was handled. Like, as she is taken over by Voleth Meir, what she sees, she's seeing this vision of if her whole family was alive and everything was as she could wish for. And I mean, I just liked it from the standpoint of well, a couple things. I mean, because it sort of ties into the theme of the episode for me, which I'll get to later. But then also, that's challenging her. Like, she's offered this vision of everything as it should be. And even to the point where things that would have irritated her or she wouldn't have wanted to deal with before she lost everything, she's like, no, I'll do it. It's wonderful. Like, I have everything I want. And in particular, she's starting to like break out of it. And then her parents show up. And that's what like drew her back in.
Right.
Like Mousesack and her grandmother, that was enough to start, but like, it was not enough to like pull her back in when she starts to realize something is wrong. So anyway, I just liked how that was handled and how that was done. And it was a true challenge for Ciri, like to stand up to that. So that was a choice I liked.
Yeah, it was nice to see Mousesack and her grandmother again. In show.
Yes, definitely.
True.
Two of my favorite secondary characters on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was probably my favorite of the
Right,
choices
yeah.
in this episode.
So we had the same favorite then. I like that.
Yeah.
You guys see any ways that these scenes that we like will speed up the show or fix any problems with the show?
I mean, I don't really, because I don't feel like any of the choices that were made in this episode were really about speeding things up. I was a little bit surprised about like the choice to, I mean, I knew they were headed there at the end of the last episode, but like we're back in Kaer Morhen, like very
Right.
quickly. And that was like a sort of odd choice, especially with the way they began it. Like it kind of made it seem like they just very quickly got back there. Like Yennefer is chasing Geralt and she's sort of trying to talk to him. And it's like, wouldn't they have had to travel for a while to get there?
We
Like,
just didn't see it.
I know, but it was just,
Yeah.
there's this sense of urgency as they're coming in there as if they've been like racing the whole way since the end of the last episode. It's just odd.
And I don't know if you noticed, but he's got a different horse. Ciri left the white horse she had when she and Yennefer were riding. Ciri left that white horse and took Roach, the new Roach, which would leave Geralt, I would assume, having to ride the white horse.
Yeah,
but
he's not.
As we watch him ride up, he's riding a black horse again.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So that was odd, and I mean, I guess they just wanted it to be in Kaer Morhen, but it felt odd to me just because if we're comparing it to like the source material, like they leave Kaer Morhen and then they don't go back.
right.
So it was interesting. That was, I don't know. That does not feel like other than getting them there quickly, which is sort of like going backwards. Like I just don't see how any of the choices were to really speed things up.
Yeah.
Oh, in that regard, like revealing who the Emir was, definitely sped up because you skipped a whole bunch of books.
Yeah,
that's true.
But the reveal, I guess, it's not maybe that important. If anything, it just makes him more of a dramatic character to introduce for future seasons of like why he's actually important and why we should care about him being so.
Yeah,
I'll discuss that in a bit here.
And other than that, it's like, remember in the book, like I'm trying to figure out how they're going to connect the rest of the book that we didn't get in this season.
Yeah.
To like next season, I'm not sure where they're going to connect or if they're going to connect at all and skip 2 or 3 books down the line.
Well, Ciri's now being Geralt actually handed Ciri over basically to Yennefer. He's going to be with them, I assume. At least that's the impression I got. But
it seems like it.
He's giving Yennefer the whole thing to teach Ciri, which is exactly what she was doing in the books.
True.
So whether that like hooks up to where, in the books where she went with Yennefer, I have no idea.
Yeah. I'm hoping season 3 is a repair it season.
Yeah. Because like, into the book, Geralt gets his ass kicked. Pretty severely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you kind of had that with the Basilisk, but not really.
Not really.
The other witches got their asses bit off.
Yeah, he seems pretty.
Or faces. Or heads.
Worst thing that happened to him is like Ciri / Deathless Mother swiping him in the face.
Yeah. I mean, Geralt always gets off scot-free usually, at least on the show.
Yeah.
With the choices that I had of what I like, I don't see it either fixing or speeding up anything, nor do I actually see them causing any plot holes or issues because it's all so unrelated to the books.
So kind of who knows,
Well, would you say like the elf plot line may have potentially sped up theirs at all?
It put it back on track. It put the elves back on track. I now think we actually will see the Scoia'tael in the show. Maybe not named such. Maybe they won't have squirrel tails on their hats, but
I'd say that's right. They did mention a Squirtle in
that
book.
Jaskier woke up, was dreaming, and says too many squirrels when
he
woke him up.
He did. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, okay.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Now, the stuff that I do see causing some changes, and both good and bad, or having good effects and bad effects with changes that I picked. I'll jump to me going first on this one.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've said it before. I still don't like the Voleth Meir storyline, even if I understand why they had to do this, because it gave Yennefer something, to do while the other stuff was going on, and then they ended up having to drag it out just to finish it. But it doesn't ring true. But what it does do is, when it comes to, I guess, it causes problems with the whole revelation of Emir. But it's not so much a plot or narrative problem. It ruins what should have been an ongoing mystery,
Okay.
And also for people like you guys who are watching the show and reading the books, no, you're not gonna,
Yeah.
most people are scared of spoilers. I'm not.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not really either.
So I go out of my way to
avoid.
I try to avoid giving spoilers to people, but and when other people get spoiled, it kind of bothers me because I know for them, it's
It can
usually
be
for
upsetting.
most of them, it ruins their story, their experience. And that's what I mean, who Emir is like revealed like 2/3 of the way through the last book, and it's just you don't know. That's like telling a secret from Lord of Chaos and the Great Hunt. When you adapt season 2, it'd be like, okay, let's take some secret from Lord of Chaos and reveal it in season 2 of the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to speak to that because I haven't read that far in the books. When I saw that, I was kind of like, oh, I assume that's in the books, but I didn't know. And it was very surprising. Like, I would not have expected that at all. So you kind of get that jaw drop moment at the end of the second season because, like, what? Okay.
Right.
I mean, like you said, there's little hints about it in this episode, but so like you wouldn't pick up on that, I don't think, if you didn't know. And I don't know. I mean, like, it's interesting to me, like how that came about and what's going on there, but I don't know how that's going to compare to not knowing that until much later in the story. So I don't know if it's good or bad.
From my perspective, having played the games, is like I always kind of knew that, but probably forgot about it. So it wasn't a huge surprise to me. Like I kind of called it.
Okay.
Especially with the foreshadowing in the episode, which I caught right away.
Yeah.
Now the changes do kind of, it's not so much fixing stuff from the book that it's doing or speeding it, but it's putting the story back on track. Remind me of the Fringilla and Kaer storyline for this episode, where they're now like in shit deep trouble with Emir.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of where Kaer is supposed to be at.
Okay.
At one point in the books, when you actually get to meet him, not just him chasing Ciri, you actually get to meet him as a person. And he's on the outs. He was actually being taken to go get executed. And so this puts him back on that track of being, hunted down if he escapes. I'm assuming he's going to escape, and I'm assuming Fringilla is going to escape because they're in later books and they have storylines. And
so
this actually,
see that next,
and it frees them being arrested by Emir. As long as they can escape early next season, that frees them up to go back to the storylines they're supposed to have that they have in the books.
Okay.
Can't say supposed to have because this is a different story, really. But what they have in the books, which, Fringilla is in the books later on, but
no. I think we've already talked about this, but this whole thing about like Francesca having a baby, like that's not in the books.
I don't think so. No.
So this whole thing then about like Emir being the one who was responsible for,
that's all.
That's all
different.
made up. Okay.
I think it's supposed to show him how brutal he's supposed to be because like he like took the throne by force, right?
No, he took the throne back by force.
Yeah.
From the usurper. But Francesca does have a presence in the later books.
Mhm.
It's just it's connected in some ways to Nilfgaard, but there's nothing like what's going on here. I don't recall any bit of her being pregnant in the books.
Okay. I mean, it's like a big deal here. So clearly it's something that they've added.
And she wasn't even seriously connected to the Scoia'tael in the books because, the Scoia'tael was going on, we're attacking all over the place when there was that conference of mages on Bennett at the end of Time of Contempt. Yeah, Time of Contempt.
I mean, I think they've just made her a more prominent character in general,
Yeah.
which I get why they've done that. But
So yeah, there's similarities there, but not that much.
The Kahir scene where like they kind of get caught red-handed, sort of.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of toddlers, like when they're lying, and it's like, like I can literally see you holding the snack bag in your hand.
Right, they're not very good at that.
Yeah.
No. That was a serious mistake they made, though. Boy.
Yeah. So that was a test, and they failed.
I don't know about the future books, but I'm gonna guess that might at least show the Emir's cunningness and backstabbing routes.
I mean, it's pretty cold-blooded.
Yeah.
And
Johnny's a monster.
I mean, given the cold opens we've got in the past, we might even get some of his backstory in Nilfgaard next season.
Maybe. But yeah.
He might go full Clegane.
I can't wait to hear your guys' reaction to the motivation that he has for everything he's been doing, which I'm not even gonna say.
Okay, well, don't. But I know I'm afraid to
Somebody else has similar motivations for what they're doing, and it's just, oh boy.
Are they orange?
Okay.
No. Oh,
okay.
we did see, by the way, Ryan's and Lydia's master, their boss, Lydia's boss, the guy who Ryan's has been working for, but we only saw them from behind.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was going to
back
comment
of their
on that.
head,
Like,
the back of
we
their
still
head.
don't know who it is in the show, or if it's the same.
I had almost completely forgotten about that scene.
I'm calling it now. It was Roach.
Roach, dang.
Roach is almost as bad as Bella.
It's not the Roach he's writing now. It's three Roaches back.
Three Roaches came back from the dead.
Definitely.
Pretty mad about being left behind. I mean, that makes sense.
He did not like being turned into a tent.
Okay, so I think we now need to just cover a little bit more about changes that we didn't care for, choices we didn't care for, because we haven't fully covered that, although we've been hinting at some. So, Max,
I've given mine.
Oh, yes, you have. Do you have anything you wanted to add to it?
Not at the moment. I might come up with something while you guys talk.
All right, Max, do you want to add anything?
There wasn't anything I really disliked. I kind of mentioned that the whole baby killing thing was kind of distasteful in a lot of ways, but it was like it set up her as a potential villain, and I'm not sure you put that in that border of black and white and all that.
Yeah.
The Siri thing was how to put it was good, but also it felt like kind of a trope to me. Like I've seen that kind of same thing too many times.
The possession trope.
Well, the stuck in a dream world of all your wishes were true kind of thing. It just kind of felt kind of tropey, but yet, this is the show that had a different telling of Snow White.
Yes.
So it makes sense within context, but it was also kind of felt a little bit of tropey, but I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it either.
Okay. I mean, I have to agree on the baby killing part. That for me was a choice that I guess I'll see where that goes. But what I will say is, on the one hand, they did a lot of setup where they made us really feel much more sympathetic to Francesca. You see her go through something horrendous that no one should go through. I mean, that was horrible in the last episode, to have your baby murdered.
Right.
And she's not wrong to think that it's just because of who she is, right? She had this one great hope for her people, and to feel like that was taken away from her because people hate her for who she is, for what she is. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. So then to take that and to have her go and do something that is, I mean, like, of course she's angry, of course she wants vengeance, but
She calls it justice.
Right, she calls it justice. But but how can you really call that justice? I mean, and maybe she's not quite in her right mind, which I might excuse her to, for not being in her right mind under the circumstances. But it isn't justice to kill a lot of random babies who had nothing to do with it, right? Especially at the end, we find out who is responsible. So you want to bring someone to justice, it's not those babies. So that's a horrendous act. And I don't know, where it's going with her character, but it is hard to come back from something like that. So.
I am reminded of a callback to either first season or beginning of the second somewhere. Didn't they say that the fields were sown with their babies?
The blood of, the blood of elves.
Yeah. So I mean, in that sense, if we're talking about that history that's there, sure. Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure that is very much on her mind. It's just that you can't get out of a situation like that by just doing more of the same. And maybe that's the point, and maybe that's where this is leading. So I don't know, and so I can't necessarily say I don't like the choice overall. Yeah, I mean, it is wrong to blame, people who have no power for what their leaders do, and especially because, I mean, in this case, well, these are Redanian. I think they go to Redania, right? Like that's where she's killing Redanian.
I'm assuming.
And it has actually nothing to do with Redania. I mean, they're up to some other, shady stuff, but in that case, it wasn't. It was Nilfgaard.
I do question how a group of elves managed to ride into a city in Redania, and they're walking through, no horses, mind you. We hear they had horses, but here all of a sudden they don't have horses. Walking through the streets, and there's like nobody outside.
Yeah, I mean, we just get this one very brief scene, but anyway, it's just it's a pretty extreme. Well, it's a very extreme action that she takes, and I understand that the history is also extreme. It's just that it's putting it all on her to make this extreme decision, and is it like trying to like flip things back too much in the direction of, elves are unforgivable because she did something really heinous, and
look who tried stopping her, grumpy, not elven named Gage.
Yeah, he tried to stop her and whatever, but like, maybe he's not really an elf. You've said his name, he's not an elf, so maybe everybody else was on board with it. I don't know. Anyway, it's like, I get why she might be in that mindset, but it's still a thing where, like, how do you come back from that? I don't know.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes, but all right. So I think we covered that then. I don't know if we enough. Yeah.
Any ways those scenes changed, good or bad?
Again, because this is completely added, like I don't know, other than if Francesca is a character, later on that needs to be presented in a certain light, this could impact that, but I haven't read that far, so I don't know.
I mean, she's there. I'm not going to go into anything, but I don't think this is going to affect that much.
Okay.
But yeah, and there's a reason why I didn't bring up that scene, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. All right. So moving on then, I think.
So
right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about just a favorite standout scene. Anybody have one?
Max?
I'm trying to think of one that just really stood out, and
for me,
yeah,
I'm a boy. I like the fight scenes.
Nah.
That and it looked good too. I think those basilisks look pretty damn good. Especially fighting with Geralt, that white one, when they went out onto the walkway. I really like that beat right there. When he took out that basilisk. But yeah, I like the fights with the monsters. And that includes with Voleth Meir. Everything that went on to get trying to stop her, and the whole when Geralt realized what it would take to bring her back, and he's like, come back to us. And of course, Cohen's the first one after Geralt to step up and repeat, because I've always gotten the impression watching the show, and to an extent in the books, Cohen, next to Geralt, Cohen's probably the Witcher she's closest to or spends the most time with. He kind of seems to dote on her to an extent. Not so much dote, but he seems to favor her.
They're kind of buddies. They seem like they're buddies. Yeah.
Yeah, he likes Ciri way more than Lambert does. That's for sure.
Yes.
So I did think of a scene.
Okay.
When Jaskier first enters the hall with all the Witchers and Ciri, and he's like, hey, and then all of a sudden, oh, you guys are busy, and then walks away.
Yeah. I know. I could pick any Jaskier little bit. I mean, he didn't have any really long scenes. Well, no, that's not true. He had a pretty good scene
under the table.
No, I was thinking of Yennefer when she's making the potion.
Mm-hmm.
That was this fairly substantial scene.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
He had a lot of really positive interactions towards Yennefer in this episode.
Yeah, I like the shift in that scene where he's he's sort of complaining and making fun and jokes and everything, but then all of a sudden he gets serious and he's like, what do you need me to do?
Exactly.
So that was nice.
That's to make up for Book Jaskier, who saw Yennefer naked on a tree.
Well, half naked, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah.
He's making crude jokes.
No, it for sure for me at this point, show Jaskier is much higher in my estimation than Book Dandelion or whatever we're gonna call him. So
any all of his names.
Yes.
Julian, Alfred, Pancratz, whatever.
So that was a good one. I kind of almost forgot about that scene, but I like that scene. The other thing I was gonna mention is I guess it's sort of just the climax of the battle with Voleth Meir, where Yennefer decides to become the vessel. So it's basically that combination of her making that decision and Geralt rallying everyone and Ciri basically that getting through to Ciri so she can come back. So it's basically involved everyone kind of coming together, doing their part, and how those beats played out was nice. I like that.
I have to agree, those were really good beats. Another beat with Jaskier and Yennefer's right after the climax when everybody else is recuperating. Where does she go? She walks straight to Jaskier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, are they gonna switch this, make a love triangle here or something in the future season? Is that what they're trying to do? That was what went through my head when I saw that. I'm like, is she planning a love triangle? And I'm like, I'll have issues with that.
Nah, that's not gonna happen. I don't see that.
He's just Uncle Jaskier.
Yeah.
All right, so then, did you have one, Glenn?
Yeah, it said the fight with the bass.
Oh yeah. Never mind. Sorry, I forgot.
Despite my dislike for the storyline it served, I really liked the scene.
Yeah, I don't know why I just forgot that for a sec. Okay, so now let's talk about scenes that we didn't like, hated scenes.
You've already talked about it, so I might as well pop in now. It's the babies.
Yeah.
Pretty much keeps coming up.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bring it up earlier, because I knew I was bringing it up here.
Yeah.
That I don't like watching it. I don't like it being content. I don't. You don't really know Francesca in the books, her personality well enough, but I don't know. I think it was kind of a stretch for her to, go and do that. I don't see the Francesca the show has given us this season. being somebody, yeah, okay, sure, they're humans, but they're freaking babies. And she just lost her baby. She should know that she should have, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that, I think, motherly instinct would tell her, no, don't do this, and
I mean, the only thing I can bring in as any sort of excuse, but again, I don't know that they're going in this direction. This is just me completely projecting stuff onto this, is that like, you know, being in the state that she's in, so she's postpartum. I mean,
Mhm.
postpartum, like depression and psychosis is like a real issue that women can have regardless of anything else. You factor in that she's had a tragedy, and her baby is gone. And like, if you told me that she was suffering from like postpartum psychosis, I'd be like, yep, okay, I buy that.
okay,
Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think that that's what the show is going for, though. Like, I
No.
don't have no reason to believe
Mhm.
that they would bring in like a real world thing like that to weave in. So that's just totally me layering on like a real world
Yeah.
Well, they have
situation there.
brought in a real world thing already, the whole idea of a gene,
Yeah.
which no
Again,
medieval society had the idea of a gene.
yeah,
For the Francesca thing, I kind of look at like she's just trying to make humans feel the pain she's feeling.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
they've had generations of them not understanding the same pain. So she's creating pain, but it's also not really helping because it's going to basically go back to
yeah,
Geralt's original prophecy in the book that the elves are just going to, kill themselves off.
yeah.
They don't join humanity.
I mean, and the only reason I'm saying like psychosis too is because like that could sort of remove any sense of reason to look at this and go like, all this is going to do is like cause more pain. This isn't going to do anything except
Mhm.
cause more pain and suffering. She can't maybe see that. If she was suffering from a condition like that, that might just be something that she can't process. But again, I don't know that, I doubt that that's what they're going for. So I think it could just be a choice that is like too extreme.
makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah, so I'm kind of with you. Like that was my also the scene. So far I just don't like it because I'm not sure where they're going with this, but it's yeah.
And in my notes, I referred to it as Francesca's Master of the Innocents.
Mm.
Very, very specifically wanted to take that biblical phrase there because, yeah, well, it's not technically in the Bible that they say that. It's like that's how it's described outside the Bible.
Yeah.
So, Max, do you have
It's
anything on
basically
that?
the same thing.
Same. Yeah. Well, okay. So
Okay.
we all pretty much agree there. Okay. All right.
So,
So
actors.
yeah, actor shout outs, call outs.
Honestly, I had to give some tiny shout out to Francesca for showing that kind of hurt that she's feeling,
Okay.
Yeah,
and then just
that's
going
good.
completely vengeance of like, whoa,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a good call.
I mean, to me, she sold it. I don't know if she could have done better on that scene or anyone else could have done better, but I think she sold it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean that's tough to do. So
Yeah, I forgot to write her name down. The actress's name.
B had it up here at one point.
Rebecca, how about yours?
I was actually gonna, because I don't usually do this, but I was gonna say that I thought that Henry Cavill did a good job in this episode. Like just I kind of am like, you get like that really strong sense of how important Siri is to him, the pain when it comes to Yennefer, like it's, at the end when he's like, I don't forgive you. But at the same time, he's like, it was an interesting choice that to have to sort of sell, the very complex layers of how he's like feeling about Yennefer at the end there. And I thought he did a good job with that.
Henry doesn't get mentioned often enough in this category, does he?
Yeah, no, I think he's under mentioned, but he had some moments that stood out to me in this episode, so I wanted to mention.
I blame the writers
Yeah.
because he's that guy like Glenn in the background over their shoulder, like, no, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So they just keep writing him further and further out.
But what it is really is like, if I think about how he's written in the books, a lot of times he's a spectator in a lot of scenes in the books. Like, people are telling him things and he's
Mhm.
like taking in that information, like that's the scene. So he's sometimes not a very active character in the way the books are written. Now, I think that's less so in the show, but it's there
Well,
as part of his
there's a
character that
reason
he's,
why the books aren't about him.
yeah, but he's always there. Like,
Yeah.
he's always there. He's sort of a more constant character, but he's a less active protagonist.
The books do get away from that, though. Having him in just about every scene.
Yeah.
The further in you get more and more passages where Geralt's nowhere nearby.
Yeah.
Which some of my favorite stuff is like that.
So it's like book 3 where you see Ran at the end of the book.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Freya Allen.
Okay.
She was superb this episode as both Ciri and then Ciri possessed by Voleth Meir.
Yeah.
Going back to that throne room scene in Sintra with Cahir and Fringilla, I think both Eamon Farron and Mimi Nidoweni, I'm sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing that right. I think both of them did excellent jobs. I mean, he was good, but she was subtle.
Yeah.
You could just make out all these, as he explains to her what he's thinking, and as it's crossing her mind what he's, okay, that's what he's saying. You could just see like little flickers to her eyes, and like squid, just like this subtle little bit. It's like, I don't even know if she consciously controlled those movements or if they just went with what she was trying, the emotion she was trying to feel. But
she's gotten better and better. Yeah, she impressed me a lot this season.
She was really good in that. So yeah, Freya, Eamon, and Mimi.
Mhm.
But you guys also did mention Henry and who did Max say? I'm already forgot. Francesca. Thank you. My goodness, brain fart.
Yeah.
I'll have to get her name. I've got that written down somewhere. Those were all good choices too.
Yeah.
There's one I really didn't like.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it. We don't usually get that, but go for it.
Bart Edwards as Emhyr var Emrys Deathwent Nathan Kaer Morhen. I can't pronounce that. I tried pronouncing the Elder Blood. I slaughtered it.
Just say Dunny.
Dooney.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be a play on words for a hedgehog, and so is Erkenwald or whatever. When the other name Urkion. Urkion is actually, in a real world language, I believe, does actually mean hedgehog.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there was some. Sapkowski was having some fun there.
I liked him better as a hedgehog.
Yeah, or like immediately after he stopped being a hedgehog.
That was also fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
Season 2.
But like actor-wise, is that so? Tell me a little bit more.
I didn't like his performance. It felt fake.
Okay.
I was trying to think of the right word. Yeah, fake. I don't know. I haven't bought him in any scene I've seen him in at all for the show. So
I mean, I think that's somewhat fair. Like, I can't tell.
at least
There's
without
not enough
the makeup.
writing. There's not enough writing for him, but I will say that, like, even in like the little scenes where we see him with Pavetta, because we've had a couple scenes where he shows up with Pavetta, and both of them feel a little off to me, but her more than him.
I didn't list her because I don't know why I didn't list her. I probably should have, because I've never liked her as Pavetta.
Yeah.
All the way back to season 1, I didn't like her.
Is it the same actress?
The same actress, yeah.
She looks really different in this season.
She's aged.
Yeah, but it must be they're using makeup or something.
The hair too.
And the hair.
But,
yeah. So for me, it's more Pavetta than Emir that is a sort of more standing out as like just kind of being a little bit like blank or wooden or something. And but it's hard to say because like there's not like there's a lot of writing there, and like she's showing up in these scenes where she's not real, so it's also like but anyway, those haven't worked out really well for me.
I agree.
Okay.
So,
Yes. So, randomly, because you're talking about like Freya Allen in this episode, I was thinking so the dress she's wearing, that's the dress she got in the first episode of the season. Is that right?
which dress? She's in
white-
2 dresses.
Well,
She's in 2 dresses this
it's
episode.
the same. No, it's like the
arms are the sleeves and the arms
He
and
has an overdress on in the vision, but underneath it's the same dress.
I didn't realize. I thought it was a totally separate dress in the vision.
No, I don't think so.
The silhouette was entirely different.
Well, because there's an overdress, but I think the underdress is the same.
Oh,
I don't know. Anyway, the dress that
So you
she's
put
wearing,
a chat bubble for me saying, "Okay, Robert Jordan."
Yeah. But the other thing is, I'd say it isn't the same dress that she got from Nivellen, because that was a white dress. This is like a cream off-white color.
Okay, but then where the heck did she get this dress? This is what's bugging me.
It was in her luggage, in her saddlebags that she brought. I don't know.
All right, if it's not the, if
Yeah.
it's not, I have to go back and look.
I
But
had
if it's
the
not the
same
dress she
question
got
about-
from Nivellen, I'm like, where the frick did she get this dress?
Where's the dress that Yennefer's wearing came from? The last we knew, she was wearing that rope dress that I liked from Sodden Hill, and then she's there at Sodden Hill having to execute Kaer. I believe she's still wearing that dress, and then she has to run away from there, and then she gets to Oxenfurt, and she's wearing a totally different dress there, and then she had that cloak, that purple cloak you pointed out that one episode, and then after that, after fleeing there, she shows up in this black and gold dress at Melitelli's temple. Like, all right, so if you're wondering where Ciri's dresses came
Max
from,
is taking a nap.
I didn't even look at him. I was looking at you on the screen because that's what I do when I talk.
Wait.
I'll see it when I edit.
Sorry, you were looking at me. I was looking at Max.
I have these old Z's going up.
Ah, nice.
All right. We'll stop complaining about dresses now. Anyway, let's move on. All right. So where are we? Oh, themes. We gotta talk about themes.
So
Yeah.
Go for it, Max.
My 3 thing.
Yeah, go for it.
So betrayals. I listed out the Fringilla Emir whole betrayal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tisea,
Yeah.
that random little scene of them basically okaying the hunt for Ciri.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I mentioned on that is we don't actually know when that happened. If that was like recently or if that was months ago. No idea.
Okay. Yeah.
I put Istrid on there because I'm not sure how you would consider what him telling the elves about Ciri, if that's betrayal or not.
Who is he betraying? I don't know.
The Lodge.
Humans?
Not the Lodge, but the Brotherhood.
Yeah, I guess.
He's betraying the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
So like those were like for minor characters, you want to call them, like not the main ones.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how you put this other one as major or minor, but the next set I have Ciri with the Deathless Mother, how you consider that betrayal, killing like 5 witchers in their sleep as some betrayal, even if it's not necessarily Ciri.
Yeah, Ciri didn't do it.
You have Vesemir stabbing Ciri,
Yeah.
Mm.
and then you have Dandelion at the very end when we find out that he's being paid by someone.
Well, what do we know about that? Because I am confused.
From the
by
show? Nothing from the show. From the books? He's not the only one that's there that was on payroll for Redanian intelligence.
But in the
It's
show,
not
at the very end, he says that the bard, implying
Yeah, I know.
Dandelion,
Yeah.
and that calls into question how much his playing it up with Yennefer really is him liking her versus being paid to.
Yeah, I'm gonna be so mad if all that's fake.
And it
Well-
could be like the same thing they did with Yennefer, where she was like betraying Ciri, but then she's like, "Oh no, I actually like Ciri."
Yeah, can't do that too much though.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
well done.
In the book, I think it's talked about before the end of time. It's talked about in Blood of Elves.
Well, speaking
So
of
I can
not
say
doing
it both.
things over again,
Yeah.
well, if season 3 has Kaer trying to escape, well, they'll do that again.
True.
So it's like, are they going to have him escape and kind of redo that plot again and have him escaping?
Unless
Yeah.
they're just going to cut him, but
Yeah.
because
He's
he
always
has to
escaping
go
something.
anywhere near. He has to. He has to escape or be rescued.
Yeah, and like I said, you don't really want to see them repeat certain plots, but yet they basically will be.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they did that to themselves.
Because didn't they? What was it? We had Yennefer being rescued, and then we had Dandelion being rescued several episodes apart, or same episode, or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of blending together here. So it's like it wouldn't surprise me if they repeat again and have the opposite end of the same thing happen again.
Kaher's rescue is an accident, to be honest. I'm not joking. The people who rescued him, they did not go where they did and do what they did to rescue him. They did it for other reasons, and he just happened to benefit. But yeah, what was I gonna say?
I don't know. So Max got
The
put his out
themes.
there with
Yep.
like trios of betrayals, which
Mhm.
yeah, I guess
I'm
that
sure
would
there's
be
another
true.
trio out there, but I didn't catch.
Like I was saying, with when we find out in the books that Dandelion was working for Redanian intelligence, it was just a couple of offhanded lines between him and Yennefer, because she was also feeding Dykstra information, and she told him Dykstra wants another report in prose. Don't do it in verse, because apparently the last one he sent was a song or a
Forgot
poem.
about that. Well, okay. I
So
mean,
yeah, it's not
but
just
like it just
Dandelion
seems
who
like
works
maybe they're
for.
gonna make like a bigger thing out of it, which I mean that makes sense to make a bigger thing out of it, but I'm still gonna be mad if all this stuff I
I-
like about Yaskier this season is fake.
I don't think they're gonna do that to Dandelion.
Okay.
I think it was kind of an innocent thing. It wasn't like anything nasty like it would be if they were to do it, continue it too far enough. And I think he's gonna do. It's like he's gonna have the same attitude towards it as Dara. I'm not doing anything for you anymore.
I honestly think it's just going to do the Yennefer thing over again. If you look at his songs at the beginning of the season, he was pretty pissed off at Geralt and Yennefer.
Yes.
And that's probably why he's like, oh, money.
Yeah.
I hate this
Yeah.
guy, whatever. And then
Right.
getting
and
back with him, you're like, oh, I actually kind of like these guys.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And he had good reason to be pissed off at them.
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna blame him for that.
Yeah, I think what we've seen from Yaskier this season has been genuine.
I hope so. Because if they try to make that fake, I'm just gonna be mad. But all right, I'll go with what you're saying.
Your themes, Rebecca? Are you done, Mac?
Well, I was going to mention that his working with freeing the elves, I think that was also part of Redanian.
No, Redanians would not have supported that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was more of like, I don't know how to put it.
He was
Trying to
sneaking
get
them out of
the
Redania.
Nilfgaard as like the free elves to kind of turn the Northerns against the Nilfgaards kind of thing. Like they were both trying to play the elves against each other.
I don't know if Dandelion was trying to play elves against anybody. He just tried to rescue.
Well,
yeah,
I think he generally tried to rescue them, but he was being played by the Redanians to get them to go to Nilfgaard to get the North to fight Nilfgaard because the elves are aligning with him.
I don't think the Redanians knew he was the Sandpiper.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we know.
I didn't get the impression that the Redanians knew, or that at least that Dykstra knew, and Dykstra knows everything. But
yeah, for me, the theme that was strongest was like basically the family you choose, because that's mostly in Ciri's part of the story where like she's given this vision of the family she had that's gone and that's not real, but stronger than that is the family that she is choosing, and we kind of see that with Geralt and Yennefer both as sort of parental figures to her at the end. And I think it also just comes into play with the Witchers as a whole too, because they are basically a chosen family, because in all those cases they, you know, didn't have families growing up, or they were ripped away from their families, you know, and they're choosing themselves as a group and as a family. So that was a stronger theme to me. And you know, I think somewhat, you know, the family theme comes in a little bit too with the elves and that whole side of the plot line too.
Yeah, you got. I have family listed as well. Both Geralt and Ciri, Geralt and the Witchers, and Ciri with those she lost in Sintra. That's where I thought that played in. Loyalty, which is kind of the obverse of betrayal,
Yeah.
but I have it with different situations. I was looking at the loyalty the Witchers have to each other. Was noticeable. Dara to his queen Francesca, you know, and loyalty back to him from her and Philavandrel for not handing him over for being a spy and not
they're
holding
not
that
blaming
against
him because he was not
right.
at fault. Yeah.
Kaer and Fringilla being seen as being disloyal, so it ties into that whole betrayal thing. Were they disloyal? Not really.
Just a little self-interested.
Yeah, which, you know, is something that the Nilfgaard Empire kind of promotes.
Yeah.
And then I also have vengeance and justice listed together. And that's mostly with, you know, Francesca. To an extent, with you could say that there's some kind of sense of justice going on when Kaer and Fringilla get arrested at Emir's orders because he sees them as having been less than, you know, loyal. But that was pretty much it. Well, yep. So thank you guys, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks for watching. Please leave us a like, a subscribe, and some comments. And don't forget to be awesome.